Good evening and welcome to tonight's installment of the Roundup. I'm David Iverson and I'm joined, and I can't tell you how excited I am.
You need to get out more.
No, I don't. But I've been wanting to sit down with my good friend, Representative Pendergraft, Agent 29, if you watch Cowboy State Politics Live. So, Ken, finally, welcome to the show.
I finally had an evening free, kind of.
I know. Well, we wanted to do this last night,
Yeah.
and you got caught up doing your actual job.
It's pretty much every night. I don't remember whether it's Mike Enzi or somebody else. One of the old timers said this is the most expensive hobby you'll ever love. But it's also expensive in time. It's just when you get down here, I'm generally completely occupied from 6:30 in the morning till 9 or 10 at night. Period.
Well, and being on appropriations, that doesn't help.
I,
Other people they don't have committee meetings twice a day, every day, but you guys do.
yep.
All right. So the reason I wanted to have you on is we're pretty much done with the budget except for the conference committee, and there's a number of different things that that I want to talk about. And I guess first, I think the place I'd like to go is to just sort of talk about the process of legislating. Like, how is it that, how is this thing supposed to work? Because there's been a lot of other
Yeah.
extraneous stuff this year, but just talk to me about your vision of how this is supposed to
I
function.
kind of like that question because a lot of folks on the outside, I think, don't really understand just how difficult it is to make any kind of a change. Um, and that's a good thing because if you could come in here, if any one side could come in here and immediately sway things and just hard right, hard left, whichever way, we'd have a lot of chaos.
Big
It
time.
very hard to pass just a bill. If you,
Any bill.
yeah, if you bring a bill, it's got to go to two different committees. It's got to face scrutiny on the floor with people that are wanting to tear it apart
Two
and shut
floors.
it down. Yeah, that's just what I'm saying. That goes to the other one, and the whole process. So that old schoolhouse rock, I'm only a bill. Yeah, it's a tough process, and some things that you think would be a slam dunk. Jeremy Haraldson's been working on some of these gun bills that you would think
Man, that'd
no
be easy.
problem at all. Yeah, he's been working 6, 8 years now, and while that's frustrating at times, look how long we've been trying to protect the lives of the unborn, and you would think in a state like Wyoming, it would just be boom. Whap. No,
No.
it's
Ken, we
it's
have
brutal.
we have this mistaken impression living in Wyoming that we all kind of think the same, and that we all love our guns, and we don't want taxes. And you get down here, and you figure out that well, we don't at all think
Yeah,
the same.
especially you get down here at people who, however life deals what it deals. And if you're going to serve in the legislature, it has to be a mission. There's no way to earn a living.
No,
It's,
no. If you are, something's wrong.
yeah. So the sad thing about that is that eliminates a lot of really good people from even being able to come down here and do this because they're busy trying to make a living, trying to run a business, trying to raise their kids, all those other things. And so what you get is a strange mix of people down here, quite frankly, that tend to be polarized.
Yeah.
And this is a relatively polarized, although I don't think more so than the 67th was.
No, I think when
It's
you
just the 36-26 with the sides have swapped.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the votes. The first thing I was trying to figure out, first couple days was, all right, what's the number going to be? Because in the 67th, like you said, it was 36-26.
Yeah.
And almost every vote was
It's
like
about
that.
34-28 this time.
Yeah, yeah. And that is, I think that's indicative of, just two competing and different philosophies in
Yeah.
how we ought to govern.
There are definitely two worldviews. One side thinks that government is the answer to every sociological ill, and all we got to do is work more government. And the other side disagrees with that. One of the funny things to me, though, is when I first got down here, it was people like Steve Harsman and Lloyd Larson that were the big influential people, and they said to me, the hardest thing you'll ever do is try to cut the budget. And they're absolutely right.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter what item you look at, it's important to somebody. And I played you a couple of emails, or voice messages, emails,
Some of
doesn't matter.
the ones I've heard are
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah, I got a couple of brutal ones yesterday. It doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to be pissed.
Hmm.
And when you sit there for over 40 hours of debate, as we did, and you're getting hammered by emails, you're getting hammered by phone calls, you start worrying about, because all you're hearing is the noisy opposition. You're not hearing the masses, they're quiet.
Right.
And you start worrying about, can I even get reelected? And you want to start kind of gravitating toward the middle where it's safer. And I'm actually of the view, we'll find out.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of the view that the way to get reelected to be endearing is be who you are.
Well, and I've made the comment to several people that I don't think that you've really changed. Now, I can point to a couple of things that aren't a negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of those was, when you first got elected, you and I would joke, "Hey, now don't you forget that right now $5,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
When you get down here, $5,000 is kind of meaningless."
5 million is going to spit in the wind.
Right,
It's
right.
weird.
And you and I would discuss that, well, it's all taxpayer dollars, and it's just that
Yeah, even if it's federal funds or whatever,
Yeah.
it's taxpayer dollars.
it's just the sum is different. It's just bigger than it would be back home. But my point in that is that I think that you're one of the rare legislators that hasn't changed from when you went in to where you are right now.
I said something the other day that got thrown back at me. I got some nasty, nasty phone calls, and it came down to the guy had actually used Chat GPT to see
Who you are?
me. Yeah. And AI told him that I said government employees are not taxpayers.
I saw that exchange. And I was going to ask you about
It's
this.
quite a contortion of what I actually said. What I actually said was I represent the taxpayer, not government employees. And of course, you could twist that
Sure.
to make it say, government employees are not taxpayers. That's not at all what I meant, obviously. But what I was talking about was I'm a representative of the people. So I came here to represent the people that sent me. And all too often, people that get down here very long, they make friends with the lobbyists, they make friends with the organizations, they begin to understand how the different groups work, the agencies that they work with all the time. And it's understandable that you want to protect them, you want to see them be successful. The people that work in state government at these agencies are often very sincere and trying to do a good job. And you very quickly become torn. And I got a text message maybe about an hour ago from Nick Siddle,
Okay. One of our county
the Sheridan
commissioners.
County Commissioner. And he said, don't forget that you represent the county. And I probably should even read it, but I don't think he and I have the same idea about how a republic works. There is a lot of information you get down here, and you learn fairly quickly, if you pay attention, how to play the game, how to be effective. And there needs to be some faith and confidence from the folks back home that I have their best interests at heart. I'm still the same person that I was when I left and came down here. And you need to trust me try to use my best judgment and experience to get to the goal that we both want.
Right.
Now, a good example of this is House Bill 52, which has to do with,
Oh, Lord.
Jeremy Haraldson brought that bill, and all we're trying to do is get a foot in the door with the idea that hand counting is feasible and can work, all those sorts of things. Because up until now, you mentioned hand count is just, we're not going back to the Stone Age
Yeah.
and whatever. Okay, so we want to get a foot in the door and be able to establish it as a viable method. If we tried to swing for the bleachers on the very first pitch, that thing's dead where it stands.
Yeah, it's going nowhere.
Yeah, so Representative Brady, God love her, brought a couple of amendments. I love what she's trying to do. But when you come to third reading and you got a 21-page amendment that's been corrected multiple times, there's no way.
It's not going anywhere.
It ain't going anywhere. Even Steve Harshman can't get that done, and he's famous for doing. I think he brought like 5 or 6 of them this year. These massive, this bill's failed 2 or 3 times, so I'm going to bring it as a budget amendment and cram it
Right.
down your throat. So while I appreciate what the folks back home are trying to do, I don't think they understand the realities of what it actually takes to get there. Look how long it took us to get red flag laws.
Well, and
SEPA.
if you remember, Ken, the first time that bill went through, they sent it to appropriations.
And they said, we got another one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they shredded it and turned it into something else.
Yeah.
And that's
And then they wouldn't let anybody take their name off of it.
yeah. I
That
mean,
was
it's
frustrating.
really it's a difference in who makes up the committee.
Yeah.
But I think you bring up a good point that there's one philosophy that your elected representative is supposed to bring home the bacon, bring home the dollars.
Yeah. That's basically what Siddle's message to me was. Remember, you represent Sheridan County, fight for the college, fight for this, fight for that. Nick, you guys pissed away $3 million
On a flower pot.
on a flower pot that's going to have to come away the next time you got to remodel the courthouse. Sorry, but that was stupid.
Yeah. Well, and it's again, I mean, I think where that comes from is that for so long there has been this seemingly endless flow of money. That whatever you need, the state will provide it.
Yeah.
And that's how you get, like, the best example of this, Ken, is Wyoming PBS and their tower from the Cold War. Okay, the reason why they never replaced it is they thought that the money would always be there, and so
Yeah.
they just replace it when they had to.
You bring up something that I think is important. Whenever you start talking money for the state, I reckon it similar to a check engine light. We pay the LSO to warn us. They do forecasting, long-range forecasting. If we don't change our ways, this is what's going to happen. Now, they leave out some factors, like they don't count capital gains into those, and there are some other things. So we kind of take it kind of like when your check engine light comes on your vehicle. You don't just stomp on the brake and panic and pull over and call a tow truck. But you do want to pay attention. You want to try to figure out exactly what's going wrong. Well, for several years now, they've been saying that if we don't change our spending habits, basically on the school side, we're going to be in trouble. And it went from 400 million to 600 million. Right now, after what we did this budget session, and several people on our side kind of caved and allowed some things to get by, we're looking at, within 42 months, being over $1 billion upside down.
That's incredible.
It's astounding. And at some point, we have to stop the madness. Now, you look at that Appropriations Committee, and there were several members of the Freedom Caucus on there, several other very conservative people. We did everything we could to put the brakes on. And we're about 170 million different from
The Senate.
the Senate, and the Senate is about 100 million short of what the governor.
What was it, 100 million or is it 1 million? I was trying to keep track when
Yeah.
you guys were going through the Senate bill.
Now you give me pause because, like you said, earlier, sometimes the zeros go there. But the point is, we started out almost $400 million apart, and after a few days, 40 hours of
Back and forth, and
back
back
and
and
forth,
forth.
they just they beat you down and they wear you down, and it's really really hard to stand in that gap and do that.
But I think that you guys have done a good job. It is interesting, like you say, to see where you started from the end of your 2 week or 2 month really
Yeah.
marathon.
Well, it was actually more like 6 months, but yeah,
But where you guys started and really putting the brakes on spending,
yeah,
and now we're down to it to where we're kind of back to what the governor wanted to begin
kind of,
with.
kind of. And JCC will come out. It'll be what it is. But what it has proved to us, most of the votes in the House came down to, like we said, 34-28, somewhere in there. We had a majority, but not a. We couldn't get the 2/3, so we couldn't do those sorts of things. And then the Senate just immediately caved.
To everything.
One of the very first things they did was go right back to the governor. So all of that work that we did for those months on the joint appropriations, trying to find places where we actually could cut, they undid. So then the impetus was on the House side to stay as far away from that, to refuse as much spending as we could, even though some of it, and we'll talk about one that was really stupid, the barber thing.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that because
Yeah,
I mean the lovely Christine was asking me about that. So why don't we go there,
It's-
and then I want to talk about another spending.
I think it got into there as a bargain chip, but basically what it amounts to is they have their own revenue, and they have to, for whatever reason, get authority from the legislature to spend it so that the examiner could go to remote locations and improve them there. It's their own money. It should just be a slam dunk. But at some point, it got held out of there, probably as thinking it would be a bargain chip down the road. And it's really hard to stand up and try to defend something like that. But what we were trying to do was defend as much of the savings as we could, so that when we went to JCC, when we tried to meld the two of them, we had more margin to work with. But when you cave on the Wyoming Business Council, and that's another fascinating thing.
Yeah.
When you cave on this, when you cave on that, you erode your ability to make a difference later. So, but all in all, I've got to applaud the conservatives in the House. They hung together in a daunting barrage, and they did a great job. And if nothing else, they learned just how hard it is.
Well, and one conversation that I don't think we've had on this program is how many late nights you guys had. I mean,
All of them.
yeah, pretty much.
If we weren't on the floor, we were in meetings or we were at home studying and working on that. That's where I need to go when I get done from here.
No,
Because,
you're not getting out of this that quick.
yeah, well,
All right. So one thing I got to ask you about, I think I would be remiss if I didn't. Let's talk about the college, Sheridan College.
oh, yeah.
What happened there?
So-
Just give us the story.
There's obviously, you can only do so much construction. And you got the school side, and you got the state side, state construction side. And so there's a lot of money that goes on perpetually in these construction projects. They had started the LCCC project quite a while back, and then they kind of halted it, which is stupid. All
Yeah.
that does is make it cost more. Sheridan College they have a really good need for a new science lab. The one they've got now is horribly out of date. It's got all kinds of issues with it, but it's safe. You have the Old Soldiers and Sailors Home in Buffalo, which for the last 10 or 12 years, it's not as bad as the prison saga,
Yeah.
but
Still not good,
it's
though.
needed to be done. And we have some federal funds that are pledged, but we haven't received them yet. And that's $87 million to get that done. The $27 million for the Sheridan College thing. I think we're somewhere around 15, 18 million at LCCC. There's all these things add up. The problem with the system, the way that it is that it becomes very political. I've got to get this, catch this, Commissioner Siddle. I've got to get this for my district. And if it means actually costing the state more by shutting down another project, so be it. Because we're going to a couple of years ago, they bought I think they bought a couple of votes by getting the Rock Springs High School crammed through.
Yeah, that
thing.
was.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good
And that's
deal.
an example of what I'm talking about. Is this all gets very political? You got to bring home the bacon for your district. And the fact is, the state only has so much. But if we trust the system with the Mercer reports, with how things come into play, it can work. So I want to put some pressure on them that Sheridan College needs to be moved up. But if you say that, we have a project that's already stopped and is sitting there languishing. We got material sitting on the ground. That needs to go forward. And if you do that, the veterans home's going to be delayed as well. So there's all these balls in the air and juggling all of them. And I definitely, I fought to get the Sheridan College thing up there. Now, it's a possibility, depending on how things settle out at the end of the session, we can still get that done right away. We'll get it done soon. But if you look at it honestly and you say, okay, who's more deserving? You got a bunch of retired veterans in a home that does not have proper ventilation.
It was old the last time I was there.
It has
and that was a long
ramps. You
time.
can tell what residents live where by which forearm is huge from pushing their wheelchair up a hill and down a hill. I would rather see the veterans get theirs. For one thing, they've been waiting longer than young college students. So all of these things are they're tough. They're judgment calls. Different districts come into play.
Now, in your defense, okay. Now we're kind of, I mean, we're kind of looking at it like, well, you had to make one choice over another. But in your defense, you fought pretty hard on the floor for Sheridan College.
I did, and I
Twice.
meant every word I said.
Yeah, and I mean, you went at it and lost those votes.
One vote.
Yep.
One vote would have turned it around. But then when it failed, then Representative Sherwood brings it back attached with LCCC, and then that's when the politics start to get out of hand. And that's why I stood up and said,
Well, and a lot of times, what happens, and you just alluded to this, is that one of the people, one of the legislators, they realize that something is important to you, that it's important to your district, and so they add something that maybe they want.
like a poison pill kind of.
Yeah, thinking that, well, you're so committed to this project that you'll vote for theirs
The problem
too.
was, I'm committed to the LCCC. I've argued for that too. They had contractors on the ground. They got equipment sitting there. They've got materials sitting there. To stop that project, as we did a year ago,
I couldn't believe that.
reprehensible.
And this is, and maybe a lot of people don't know this about you, but since you've been in the legislature, one of your big things has been maintenance and taking care of what you have, and so when you've got a project that's stopped, midstream, and there's stuff on the ground and contractors that you've had to lay
You're
off.
costing us more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of other items
Uh-oh.
I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't have that big of a list. Give me a break here. So as I mentioned,
I'm out of practice.
well, I mean, it's not like you've been off, not being
Yeah.
my producer for a while.
What do you got?
All right, so today you guys went through the Senate version
Yeah.
of the budget bill, and there were a couple of footnotes that, man, I was kind of shocked. Well, surprised a little bit that the Senate got rid of them, and one of them in particular was it was a budget footnote. And first, if you could explain what a budget footnote is, and then I'll ask you
Yeah.
about this particular
Well,
one.
a budget footnote basically is an expression of legislative intent. So, we're going to give you $300,000, $3 million, whatever. But we want to make sure that you do this and not this. So that's what the footnotes are. There, we like to call them sideboards that we put on there and say that. And one of the ones that we had done for the University of Wyoming, no, Department of Health. Which one was it?
Well, I don't know.
It all starts.
It
all
blended
starts.
together.
But anyway, the footnote said you're not going to use any public funds for sex change or for abortions or to pay employees insurance where that insurance company will do one of those actions. What we're trying to do is get things back. The Wyoming State Constitution talks about morality.
Yep, Article 7,
that-
Section 20.
Yep. And that we are there to hold the line morally. And that's part of what we're trying to do. The other part of what we're trying to do, for example, with the University of Wyoming, is say you're a land grant university. You need to take care of Wyoming first. It's a community of 584,000 or whatever the population
Right,
of
whatever
Wyoming.
it is.
The numbers start
You're close.
twisted around in my head. Take care of us first. And of course, it's admirable. The university in its seal wants to appeal to all types of people. They've got a fabulous, because we've had all kinds of wealth to put it together. They got a fabulous campus. It's very attractive. And so they want to make it attractive to all the people out there. And I think really, I think that's a mistake because they're trying to be like everybody else and then some. And if you look at Hillsdale, for example, it says we're not going to be like everybody else. We're going to focus on being and kind of fill this niche market.
Yeah.
UW, if they would start focusing on just good education, reading, writing, and arithmetic at the college level, engineering, whatever, and really doing it right, and cut out all of this other woke BS, I think you would find good people flocking there.
I tend to agree with you. And it seems to me that the university is, and it's like all things in government, that it's trying to be all things to all people.
Yep.
And when you're focusing on like everything, you can't do one thing well.
That ties in almost precisely with what I was trying to say about being a legislator. If you're trying to ride the fence and please everybody, nobody's going to trust you. You end up alienating everybody. I think I'm kind of circling back to
That's
what I
all
wanted
right.
to talk about earlier.
It's not like we've
But,
talked a lot
yeah.
recently.
I think I go out there and I be as honest and true to myself as I can be. And if you go to Doug Gerard's Evidence-Based Wyoming, one of the things that I'm very highly rated on is consistency.
Yep.
People know exactly what they got. If you don't like how I vote and the direction that I'm going, don't vote for me.
Yeah.
I'm not your guy. Go find somebody else. And if it comes out that he gets more votes than I do, or she, they should be the rep. But right now, I got more votes than the others. And so I'm going to do what I know my core,
Well,
my people sent me to do.
And Ken, it makes me laugh every time that I hear somebody get up to the microphone and they say, "Well, I've got a lot of emails about this," and what immediately goes through my mind is, so wait a minute, if I hooked up an AI program and I sent you 500,000 emails to say ban abortion, you
Yep.
would do that?
Yep.
Marilyn Connolly. I don't mean to mention any
Well,
names. Wendy
I
Schuler.
don't know.
Oh boy.
So that's exactly true. Now, I probably get 300, 400, 500 emails a day, depending on what issues are coming up. And I go through and I look at who sent them, and pretty quick, you realize that most of them are sent by a group about 30 or 40 people.
Yep.
And you kind of get a feel for how they feel, and you just watch them go by and what topics they're hitting. And after you've looked at maybe a dozen of them, you realize that they're all copy and pasting the same one. That's fine. I don't mind getting the emails. I like to see them. And for every 50 emails, there's one or two in there that are really interesting and that catch my eye. But those emails are not going to sway who I am. I am here because people said, I like the way he thinks. I trust him, and I'm going to send him to do what I think he thinks is best. That's my view of a republic. If you send somebody down there that's going to take a poll on every bill, for one thing,
And I don't
yeah,
know anybody that would have done
yeah,
that, Julie
for
Jarvis.
for one thing, the people that are offering evidence, and we kind of got into this earlier, don't necessarily know all the facts. That's the very first time that I bucked the people that were sending me emails when I said, they got their panties in a wad.
That was funny.
They, the people were earnest in what they were sending, and I understood what they were getting at, but they didn't know all the facts. And that's part of how a republic works, is nobody out there in the public has time to research and sit and listen to all the testimony and read and all the other things that go into this. So you kind of have to put some faith in the person you put out there.
Well, and that's the whole point. We live in a representative republic. We don't live in a democracy, and we elect people to represent our best interest because, like you said, we're too darn busy out
Yeah.
making a living and taking care of our family.
If you disagree with something they say, if you disagree with some vote that I had people scathing phone calls, you blankety blank, and I started a text conversation with a couple of them. And pretty quick they came around, okay, I get it now. I understand why you're doing it. If you don't like something I'm doing, send me a letter.
Yeah. Well, it's not like you aren't approachable.
Depends on the day.
Okay, so let's. There are some topics I really want to hit, and one of them, and we did a story on this on the Open Range Record, and it was very popular, and that was over. It was Amendment 88, and I believe it was called the Consensus Grants
Oh,
Program.
yeah.
What was that about?
Well, there was an old program before the Wyoming Business Council really started getting into business ready communities and all these things, where we'd set aside, the legislature could set aside a certain chunk of money. And the consensus part of it is within a county, all the communities come together and they come up with, these are our 2 or 3 plans. These are the things we want to do. The most urgent, the most pressing. So you have local control where people that understand the area the best can do it, rather than they put together a project and send it to Josh Durrell or somebody at the Wyoming Business Council and try to appeal to them. They end up getting to decide for themselves. And then they apply the rules, everything is already in place. It's been left there intact. The statutes, the rules, everything is right there. So we took $54 million out of the pool that the Business Council had access to and put it here. And the counties themselves can have these meetings, and they pull together the communities and they say, this is what we want. Then they appeal for a grant and we send them the money. And, I talked to Jeremiah Ryman, who's the head of the County Commissioners Association. They're thrilled about it, excited about the idea.
Yeah, and the reason for it is there's no more picking winners and losers.
Exactly.
That if you have a project in your community, you apply for the grant and boom, you got it.
Yeah. And we kind of mentioned this earlier, Sheridan County, my home county, they get 3.2 million with that 54 million that we set aside for the state. And they get to decide what they want to do with it. The kicker is they have to agree with all the communities.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the fun part of
Well,
it.
and
But it was very, very well received.
Yes, and I can tell you, Ken, that article,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people looked at it,
Yeah.
and the response we got on it, notice I didn't say feedback. The response we got on it was
old
also,
sound guys hate feedback.
but it was really good.
Yeah.
And I think, and I want you to comment on this too, that in a very contentious session, and I don't think that anybody could argue that was almost the first point where you had almost unanimous agreement.
Yeah, we had been saying all along we don't want the Wyoming Business Council. There were a bunch of us that have had problems for years with the Wyoming Business Council, at least the way that it is. So we did the Overton window thing and said just wipe it out. Okay, now we've got a couple of bills that would maybe reshape or rebuild it. And that's fine. But none of that would have happened. Same thing with the 40 million. If we'd have started with 5 or 10 million, like a little slap on the hand.
You would have ended up with $200.
Yeah, or nothing. And it's part of the art of the deal. It's part of that. And anyway, I look forward to what can come of this. It was almost unanimous on the floor to take the consensus grant and to make it work. And all of these people before had been saying, "Oh, you want to get rid of the Wyoming? What's your plan? What's your plan? You don't have a plan. You don't have a plan." And we kind of sat on that for a while and let them just agitate a little bit, knowing what we were going to do. And then when we came out with it, it was like, "Wow,
We like this.
that's a good plan." Maybe the conservatives really can govern.
Yeah, and I think in a time or in a session where it seems like everything is an argument, I was pretty pleased to see that come out. I think it's a good plan. It stops the picking winners and losers, and I think it's great.
It makes, we don't have 40 employees that we have to keep employed at sometimes pretty high rates.
Yeah, $24,000 a month.
It's much simpler to administer. By the way, just a little aside, and I haven't even read the details on it yet, but I was handed a piece of a document today that goes into some of the, like the Sunbucks and some of those other food programs that the government runs and how efficient they are. And I'm just throwing a number out that you can't quote me on this, but a lot of the local charities operate on about a 15% margin, where 15% of their gross goes to cover administration while a lot of the government-run things are like 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
So they get a lot better bang for the buck in the private sector. And so I'm getting beat up. I've got texts sitting on my phone now. Why do you hate children? Why won't you feed children? In the first place, that's not really what government should be doing. But in the second place, it does not do it nearly efficiently enough and wastes a lot of the money that should be going to what you want it to get done.
You bring up something I hadn't intended to ask you about,
Uh-oh.
but one of the earlier in the session, of course, this is only week 3, so when I say earlier, it feels like it was a month ago. But one of the more contentious debates was about the summer lunch program in the school.
Yeah.
That the conservatives said, no, why are we feeding kids during the summer? And you got beat up over that one quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, it's the same principle. Number one is anything that government gives you, it can take away. And if you cede, how many times you heard me say this kind of a routine? If you cede liberty to the government, where are you going from there? It wasn't expressed as well as I usually do,
you're
but
tired.
I am tired. But that's the point. Is during the debate about the money going to the tribes for Medicaid there, at one point I heard several of the tribe's spokesmen saying, if we don't get these federal dollars, we will die.
Yeah.
Who would ever want to put people in a position where a political government, fickle as it may be, could literally starve them out?
Yes.
we started out, when I was a kid, there really wasn't much of a lunch program, and then they started doing lunches, but you had to pay for them. You got a lunch ticket.
Right, and little lunch
Yeah.
ticket things.
And then they started saying, well, we're going to have reduced price meals for those that qualify. Pretty quick, we got to have breakfast too. Now we got to have weekends if you can come in on the weekends. If you can't. Now summertime, we got to do, and pretty quick, if I'm a single mom struggling, and I realize that the school will feed my kid for free, and I don't have to get up that extra half hour early and make lunch or something. Of course, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so when these programs are there, they just automatically expand. Bearing in mind that they are not as efficient as private organizations, we just create this monster and we create a dependent class. And I think that's very dangerous. So,
But you had a different comment that I thought was particularly prescient, in which you said, what we're teaching people is where their next meal is coming
yeah.
from. And you weren't talking about the parents, you were talking about the kids. And I
Yeah.
thought that was
Yeah,
a really important
teaching,
point.
You're teaching kids, where does food come from? Well, every month we get a Visa card in the mail or it gets reloaded, and that provides for me. So you teach them to be dependent on government. If you want to teach somebody, take away all of that, and I know this sounds really horribly cruel. Take away all of that, and they realize it's up to me to fend for myself, because that's the way the world really is.
Yeah.
And the world don't owe nobody a living.
Well, and I have always been, horrified with the amount of cash that we throw at all of these programs. And it's not just the lunches, it's not the
Yeah.
food, it's the staff, it's the
The-
power in the school, it's all of these things.
The war on poverty began 1965 or right around
With the Great
in there.
Society.
Yeah, and look how far we've come. Scripture was right. The poor you have with you always.
Yeah.
And it is, some people have even put scripture verses on their scathing messages to me about why would you cut funding for these things.
Right.
And quite frankly, to be honest, we didn't cut any funding. We simply denied some of the excess, the increase. Just like it is in D.C., if you don't let it expand at an exponential rate, you're cutting.
Well, and that's the other thing too, that, I don't think that a lot of people realize that the growth of government here in Wyoming is really set on automatic. And the easiest place to see that is in education. They have these things called escalators. And
Yeah.
you guys don't have to
He
do
says.
anything. And it goes up, the last number I heard was like $200 million a year. I'm sure it's more now.
Yeah.
But we've set up a system that it just grows government all on its own.
And it takes more federal dollars to run it, and the federal dollars causes inflation, which it's just this never-ending cycle. And so during the Medicaid arguments, during the debates on the House floor, I kind of was the standard bearer from the conservative side for, well, what do we do? Well, we don't keep doing what we've always done because that's not working.
Right.
And we've got to somehow transition back to the free market. So the answer is not rebase Medicaid and throw more money at it. We've already proven over 40 years that's an endless cycle of making more and more problems. So if we know that's not the solution, stop spending more money on it and start actually thinking about other ways. And that's what we don't do because it's hard. We spend all of our time taking it the easy way, kicking the can down the road, doing what we've always done, thinking maybe the results will be different.
Yeah, well, that's the definition of insanity.
That is.
All
I
right.
actually mentioned that on the House floor.
Did you get gavelled down too?
No.
All right, so last topic, something a little bit more fun. Last show we did, I had Mark Jones from Gun Owners of America. here, and we talked about all of the gun bills, and there's quite a few of them actually. But I would like to ask you, what was the conversation like behind all of the debate that we saw surrounding all of these
Yeah.
firearms?
Well, let me talk a little bit about the SAPA bill, because what the SAPA bill tries to do is to put some teeth in there now, what we're trying to do with it, so that if local law enforcement enforces unconstitutional federal gun regulations, or it takes away their ability
Right.
to,
We had one
but
of
if
those, a
they
big
do it,
one.
they can actually be sued for it. And so this causes a great amount of dissonance. You have those of us on one side who are looking at gun laws and saying these are unconstitutional, and therefore we have to get back on the constitutional side, so we're not going to enforce federal regulations that shouldn't be there anyway. They're rules.
Right.
And we're going to stop you from doing it too. On the other side of it, you have police officers who are sworn to uphold the law as it's written. Whether the law is constitutional or not, that's what they're looking at. And I completely understand their point. I understand why they're very reluctant for these things. And I'll throw out one more argument too that's kind of interesting. There was a case, Alan Thompson shared this with me, where they had somebody on, they'd stopped them for drugs, and they had just slightly over the limit to be able to charge them.
Okay.
Whatever it was, I don't know the details. Anyway, it was kind of minuscule, and so that person would have, if they'd been convicted, maybe spent 2 or 3 years. Probably not even that. Probably got a hand slap and
Right.
sent right
Month or
back out.
two and
So they
year
really didn't have
probation.
much there. But in the process, they found some illegal weapons, and so this person faced 17 years in prison on federal gun charges. And so what they did was drop the state charges, press the federal charges, because they could put somebody away there. And that's an interesting,
Well, that's
pretty good argument.
well, we do that a lot actually, and until very recently, and this is just an example, but until very recently, we didn't have a felon in possession of a firearm statute. And what would happen is if a sheriff or police, they would get somebody with a gun violation, a felon in possession of a firearm. It wasn't the state that would prosecute it. They would call
Yeah.
the ATF
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, we've got your felon over here, and he's got a
Yeah.
gun." Now that changed in, I believe it was Eric Barlow's Restoration of Rights bill, which is another issue entirely.
That was a backdoor gun grabbing bill.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically he had to introduce gun laws that had never existed in Wyoming into existence so that they could be undone. Because
Yeah.
you can't undo what we don't have. Kind of convoluted logic, and I tried to warn the body on that, but
you were about the only person that didn't. One of the only people that didn't vote for that.
yeah,
Kind of got some flack on that one too.
I get flack on almost everything, so it doesn't really matter. But
All right. Well, last topic, and then I'll leave you alone for tonight, Kim. So, the budget is going to conference committee, and we've got roughly a week and a half left of the session. What can we expect going forward in the next week and a half?
I really don't think conference is going to be that difficult. I think at this point everybody wants to come out with some sort of a, we obviously want to come out better than we did, but we need to come out with a budget. It needs to be one that we can get the votes in the Senate to go along with, and then go on from there. And then what we need to do is we need to turn over a bunch more seats. The House is about evenly split, a slight majority on our side. The Senate,
Dumpster fire.
the Senate's kind of a dumpster fire. And there are some good people over there that are trying to do the right thing. Many of them are friends of mine, but the leadership hasn't demonstrated the will to really stand up and do the work. And I could cite many, many examples of that. I'm not going to go there because we have to work with these
Sure.
people over the next couple of weeks. But you got to look really hard. And I'd say, man, if you got some time, go to Doug Gerard's Evidence-Based Wyoming and spend an hour or two there and just play with it and start looking at that. And you'll learn pretty quickly. I think it's very accurate the way that it works out about how both the House and the Senate are set up and how it works. And if you happen to say, Ken Chestick, he's my guy, great.
Great.
You can prove that on that site too. You don't have to agree with me to understand and appreciate the effectiveness of the site, because it shows you where people fall out.
Yeah, and it's literally what it does. If you're unaware, evidencebasedwyoming.com. Literally, all it does is tracks how often somebody votes with the Republicans and how often they vote with the Democrats, and that's it. It's all data, but there's a lot of things that you can deduce
Yep.
from that data.
Yep.
And so, what Ken's referring to is all those different pages on there that tell you
Yeah.
a great deal about
Different-
who your representative
Different
is.
ways to use the data to compare how we're voting and those things. And he has some things on there that maybe are a little bit, I might argue with the terminology that's used, but you play with it for a while and it begins to make sense and you get a better picture. And from having lived this for 4 years now and knowing these people quite thoroughly, I'd say it's pretty.
It's
so-
pretty
so
darn accurate.
You're welcome, Doug. It's the least I could do for all the many, many hours you put into doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of other sites too. There's wyovote.com.
Yep.
There's one that I'm not particularly fond of, but it's called WyoRhino. But
I love it.
it's because most people do because it's simple.
I
and
love it
it's-
because I win.
All right. Well, that'll pretty much do it for tonight. Ken, thank you very much for sitting down with me.
You bet.
I've wanted to do
thanks
this.
for the invite.
And it's been too long, man. You need to stop doing this and get back to doing programs. with
You're
me.
not the first person to say that today.
I bet not. All right. Well, thank you for watching our program tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with the Deputy Secretary of State, Colin Crossman. We're gonna talk about the anti-SLAPP bill.
Yep.
So we got a full hour with Colin. You guys will really enjoy it.
Colin is one sharp cookie.
Yes, he is. And so don't forget about the open range record. Make sure you check out. I've got a lot of articles that I'm going to publish probably tonight and tomorrow. But for this evening, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.